Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've all been waiting for is finally here. A legend, an icon, a name synonymous with speed and victory is making a sensational return to the world of Formula One racing. The heart-stopping thrills and intense rivalries are about to get even more electrifying. Yes, the Schumacher name is back to claim its rightful place on the racetrack as the world holds its breath in anticipation. As we marvel at the legacy left behind by the one and only Michael Schumacher, we also look forward to witnessing the rise of a new generation. Introducing the prodigy who's ready to take the world by storm, carrying the torch of the Schumacher legacy, Michael's son, Mick Schumacher. Fasten your seatbelts, folks, and rev up your engines because the Formula One circuit is about to experience a thrilling new chapter in racing history. Mick Schumacher is currently one of the most exciting young racers in Formula One. A legacy kid who's had to fight his way through some tough adversity and expectations, Mick continues to shine on the biggest stage. And even though he's surely had his ups and downs over the years, there is no denying that he has the potential to be a Formula One great. So, how did Mick get here, and what makes him so great? Welcome to today's video, where we cover Mick's rise to Formula One and look at what could be next in store for this young prodigy. But first, a big shout out to you, the fans. We appreciate you liking and subscribing to our channel, F1 Racing Now. Now, on to the son of a legend. Like every sport, Formula One isn't immune to the legacy phenomenon. Essentially, we have people who go on to have incredible levels of success in the sport and who seemingly want to pass on the opportunity to enjoy the sport down to their children as well. From the Hills and Andrettis to the Villeneuves and the Rosbergs, legacy kids are all over Formula One racing as a sport. And hey, who knows, maybe we'll see a baby Hamilton or a baby Verstappen bursting onto the scene someday. As you'd expect, father and son combinations in Formula One have had different levels of success. Some sons have proven just to be as good as their fathers, or even better, while in some cases, things didn't necessarily pan out the way everyone had hoped for. Anyway, hardly any legacy driver caught the attention of the entire sport quite like Mick Schumacher. Born in 1999, Mick is the son of Michael Schumacher, one of the greatest drivers to ever step on a Formula One grid. Michael is a 7-time Formula One world champion and widely regarded as sitting right there on the sport's Mount Rushmore. Of course, this pretty much meant that racing had to be a part of Mick's life from the very beginning. Whether he liked it or not, Mick had racing in his blood. And while many people were waiting to see if he'd follow in his dad's footsteps, it didn't take us long to see the answer. And we're so glad that he did. As you can imagine, the expectations being put on this kid's shoulders from a young age were insane. I mean, the moment you mention the name Schumacher, everyone immediately labels you as a prodigy. Nevertheless, Mick had to rise through the ranks to become who he is today, and even a famous name won't buy you any sympathy here. In any case, Mick showed a liking to the sport at a young age and was quick to learn the ropes. In 2008, he joined the incredibly competitive world of karting at the age of just 12. Worried about the expectations his name carried and hoping to steer more attention to his driving skills, Mick actually raced under the name Mick Betch, with Betch being his mother's maiden name. It's understandable, of course, when your dad is the winningest driver in the history of the sport, you surely don't want the pressure of growing up under that spotlight. Can you just imagine that stress as a kid? As Mick said it himself, we tried to keep it on the less noticeable side as long as possible. It gave me the opportunity to grow my own and understand how to be a normal kid. Understandable, isn't it? It didn't take long for Mick to make his mark in karting, and it was pretty clear that this Betch kid was a natural. While he didn't win any major titles in his karting career, he came second in the German, European and Junior World Karting Championships in 2014. Now, whether he was a Schumacher or not, it was pretty obvious that Mick was ready to take that next level in his career. He did pretty well to demonstrate his character and skill on the grid, and he looked like a strong prospect. Although Mick's career did get off to a great start, he certainly had some issues. In December 2013, while skiing in the French Alps with his father, Michael had that accident and suffered severe head injuries and had to be placed in a medically induced coma. Although information has been kept incredibly private by the family, we know Michael had to deal with paralysis and had to be confined to a wheelchair. To this day, the family is still dealing with the long-term journey of his recovery. Nevertheless, Mick didn't let this deter him from his mission, and by 2015 he had graduated to Formula cars. That's when he decided to officially use his real last name too. Mick competed in the German Formula 4 Championship with Van Amersfoort Racing in 2015. It was a pretty quiet year for him, which saw him take 2 podiums and notch 1 win, while his teammate finished third in the overall season rankings with 5 wins. Heading into the 2016 season, the expectations were even higher for Mick given the previous year he'd had, and in more ways than one, Schumacher delivered. He partook in a one-off appearance at the MRF Challenge Series in India. His main goal, of course, that year was to win the Formula 4 Championship. Switching teams to Prima Racing, Mick also got the opportunity to partake in the Italian Championship. Sadly though, he narrowly lost out on that title, finishing second overall. As for the German Championships, Mick also lost out by just 52 points to the championship's eventual winner, Joey Mawson. It wasn't the championship season that Mick had hoped for, but he was making some strong progress. And he had finished second in the 2 main F4 leagues in Europe. So as far as performances go, that's pretty impressive. But now it was time for Mick to set his sights for the next big thing, Formula 3. In 2017, Mick switched to the F3 Championship, choosing to stick with the Prima Racing team. His season once again began in India with the MRF Challenge before he competed in the European F3 Championships. While many of his teammates had impressive success, Mick actually struggled here, finishing 12th in the standings in his first season in F3. Yeah, not so hot. And once again, the comparisons were intense. Many looked at Mick and his last name and magically expected him to dominate the sport. Sadly, things just weren't panning out that way, or so it would seem. And along comes 2018. Mick chose to stay with Prima that year, and while everyone expected better results, things again started slowly. By the end of the 4th round, Mick was sitting in 10th in the standings, having only achieved 2 podiums. However, things soon changed for Mick when the Spa-Francorchamps circuit in Belgium came around. There he took pole position in race 2 and the outright win in the 3rd race. It was a solid week, but Mick knew that he needed more results to improve his standing. And just like the Schumacher way, the wins started rolling in. In the next few races, Mick just seemed to have flipped a switch, because this guy just couldn't be stopped. In the remaining rounds, Mick racked up 7 race wins and a few other podiums. And that helped him pick up the championship title by over 50 points over the second place Dan Ticktum. He also ended the season by finishing 5th in Macau, the Prima driver with the highest placing that year. So now with an F3 title to his name, Mick was finally creating the right type of buzz. And what do you know? Ferrari soon came calling, quickly signing Mick to their driver academy in 2019. With his new buddies at Ferrari, Mick was promoted to F2. And just like his first season in F3, Mick struggled quite extensively in this new, ultra-competitive environment. In fact, it's safe to say that his first season in F2 was likely the most challenging of his career. Despite the downer of a season he had, Mick's first victory that year was a truly beautiful one. While at the sprint race in Hungary, Mick started on the reverse grid pole and was able to hit a massive stride and take his first ever F2 win. People immediately drew comparisons to his father, who also had a knack of pulling these types of wins out of a hat. It looked like Mick was finally ready to make his push and solidify his dominant Schumacher name. But unfortunately, the struggles continued and Mick never really managed to hit those heights again that season. Still, it was pretty obvious that this kid had something. All he needed was time. So all eyes were on Mick in his second season in F2. And what has become the theme for Mick in his career, he once again struggled at the start of the season. And if you ever wanted to know just how badly things were going for him, at the Styrian Grand Prix, Mick's fire extinguisher literally went off in his face during the race. This cost him a podium finish. Yeah, things were that bad. But as his sophomore season in F2 drew on, Mick's tenacity and competitive spirit kicked in quite nicely. Mick had landed 6 podiums heading into the 8th round in Monza, and he went on to win the Italian race in valiant form. Seems like this kid's got something for Monza, no? And just 2 races later in Sochi, Mick once again pulled off an electrifying performance that was reminiscent of his father as he went on to win that race too. So, with the season coming down to the wire, Mick had just one man standing in his way for the F2 World Championship, Callum Ilott. The Brit had an impressive season and he was looking to pretty much spoil Mick's championship party. But the forces finally aligned for our boy Nick, and after a nail-biter in Sakhir, he was finally crowned World Champion. Following his victory, Mick claimed, "To win against great competition has been a great challenge. The better the competition, the more you develop as a driver. and I will carry everything through to F1. So far, Mick's career in Formula 1 hasn't quite picked up like he would have expected. He started out his first season with Haas F1 team, debuting in 2021. And since the Haas vehicles are powered by Ferrari, Mick had something to once again link him to his famous father. With Haas, Mick was partnered with Nikita Mazepin, another driver who had made quite a name for himself in the junior ranks. Things once again started off a bit slow, with Mick being especially prone to errors. He had crashes in France, Imola and Monaco, although some fans and pundits believe that these accidents could have been due to issues with the cars, especially since Mazepin himself had been struggling with them also. Another difficult season came in 2022, one that actually led to Mick being dropped by the Haas F1 team entirely as they looked to bolster their teams and become more competitive. When announcing his departure, Mick appreciated everyone on the Haas team and made the commitment to return to the sport. And now the young Schumacher currently drives as a reserve for the Mercedes-AMG team and for McLaren. He's aiming to return in 2024, although considering the crop of drivers also aiming for seats, as well as the fresh F2 graduates who are hungry for opportunities, I think it's safe to say that Mick's got his work cut out for him. We think this is the true Mick Schumacher way. He tends to start out slow and struggling and then, all of a sudden, flips that switch and becomes a fierce beast to be reckoned with. But tell us what you think. Does Mick have what it takes to be an F1 champion and live up to the Schumacher name? Or will he continue to struggle and slowly fade away? Let's battle it out in the comments below. Thanks as always for watching. This has been F1 Racing Now, your inside track to all things F1.